All right, once again, the warm-up does count for your attendance, so just letting you know. So make sure that you do turn that in. And sorry, I have to screenshot something on my desktop. Okay. All right. So if you are not done with the warm-up, that's totally fine. Just make sure you get it turned in by the end of class. You know, I don't know why my mom calls me in the middle of class, but she does it like 3 times a day. And I'm like, every once in a while I'll pick up and I'll be like, is something wrong? And she's like, no, I just wanted to tell you what I was doing. And I'm like, Mom, like I work during the day. I don't know if you know that, but anyway, moms, they're great. Okay, so I am going to share my screen so that I can start going into the presentation. I do have it linked on Canvas on the calendar as well for you. But just make sure that you do have your paper ready for notes. And then we're just gonna get started. Okay. All right, so I did take the Chromebook home and I was experimenting with it to see what kind of stuff that we can do. And we actually will be able to do quite a bit of the same stuff that we do in class. I just have to adapt it for these different apps that we're using. So that's good news. The bad news is that Chromebooks are really slow and it's annoying. So I definitely sympathize with you all and we'll take this a little bit slower. So we're going to talk about some apps that we're going to use for this class and what they are and when we're going to want to use them. So that's why we're going to take some notes. If you have not already, I need everyone to go to their Google Play Store and you're going to download these 4 apps. It's the Photoshop Mix, Photoshop Sketch, which is actually my favorite. I put it in there twice. Dang it. No, I did not mean to do that. Photoshop Mix, Photoshop Sketch, Illustrator Draw, and let me go into my Chromebook and pull it up. So in the Google Play Store, if you just type up Adobe, all of the Adobe apps will pull up, right? So there's Illustrator Draw, Photoshop Sketch, Photoshop Mix, oh, and Photoshop Express. So I will fix that. Let me look at I haven't been using my Chromebook because that's something that's required of me. Stella, I would definitely use your Chromebook just for this class because with your stylus, you're able to, you can come and get the stylus whenever you want. The library is open from 8 to 3 every single day, and you just walk up to the door and the librarian will come out and ask you, hey, what can we get for you? And you just say, I want to check out a stylus for my Chromebook and have your student ID ready and they can get that for you. But what is really cool about this is that it will operate as an iPad. So you can bend it all the way back like this and use it like an iPad, which is actually pretty awesome for what we're doing. Someone else said that they like Sketchbook, and I haven't played with that a lot because I'm an Adobe fan, but I'm installing it and I'll play with it because that might be something that you might like to use. But this slideshow is very aesthetically pleasing. Thanks. I am such a nut when it comes to things looking good. And this slideshow is not completely done because tomorrow we're going to look at the Photoshop Sketch, and I want to make some notes about that too. So just be aware. So anyway, yes, please make sure you do have a Chromebook and stylus. And then I saw the chat come up. Could I get desktop ones for my own laptop and use those? Yeah, you definitely can. The only pain in the butt about having these apps on your desktop, on your own laptop, is that you may not be able to draw with a stylus. You might have to draw with your mouse. And if you're okay with that, then that's totally fine. But when we do Photoshop Sketch, you might want to use the Chromebook. And I'm not 100% sure if they download onto your laptop. If they do, then yeah, absolutely. I'm totally fine with that. Okay. So I'll fix this. It should say Photoshop Express. I don't know why I put Photoshop Sketch twice. So what's the difference? On paper, let's list what each one does, okay? Just so we know, because some people might be like, well, why wouldn't I use this one for that? So Photoshop Mix, this one lets you cut out and combine elements from different images, blend layers, and apply looks on your iPhone, iPad, or Android device. And I left that in there just so we know if you're using an Android device, it still works. And they're all compatible with Photoshop, which is really cool. So if you do something on Adobe Photoshop Mix and say your parent or someone has Photoshop on their computer, you could actually send it to Photoshop and continue editing it, which is really nice, and it'll keep all the layers for you. So I like to think of a Photoshop Mix as kind of a way to scrapbook photos together. So you can cut out a piece of one photo and put it on another. And that's basically the main thing that it does. So whenever we go to edit photos to fix blemishes or things like that, you're definitely not going to want to use Photoshop Mix. Photoshop Express is more photo editing. Okay, and then on the go Photoshop. Do you mean like Photoshop Express is like on the go? Yeah, exactly. Which it's super nice if you're needing to like work on it really quick. But yeah, Photoshop Mix is just like cutting out pieces of photos and putting them together. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. Photoshop Sketch. This is like a Photoshop version of Illustrator. It's more of like a drawing tool. So whenever I think of Photoshop Sketch versus Illustrator, if you were to blow up really, really big, something that you made on Photoshop Sketch, it would pixelate because Photoshop is a program that's based on editing pixels, because images like digital photos are made up of pixels, right? So Photoshop was designed to edit anything that has pixels, which pictures are made up of those. So when you draw on Photoshop Sketch, it's very realistic. It's similar to what you would see with painting and drawing with a pencil, which is why I love it, because it looks so real to like the actual pencil and paper or paint and paper. So I personally love it. It's my favorite compared to the other drawing apps. So Illustrator uses vectors, and we're going to talk about that next. But Photoshop uses pixels. And I need to play with it a little bit more, but I think there is an option. Oh no, that's Procreate, I think. I need to play with it more, but I think there's a couple of brushes that you can use in Photoshop Sketch that are vectors, but for the most part, this is pixel based. Good question though. So when I say the word vector, I know that can be kind of like intimidating, but all a vector is when you design something, you can blow it up as big as you want and it'll never get blurry or pixelate. That's the main point of it. And Illustrator is based off of vectors, where you can design something like, you know, a Pepsi logo. And Pepsi wants to blow up their logo on a billboard, right? They don't want their logo to pixelate. So you would use Illustrator for that because it's a program for vectors. And Photoshop is a program for pixels, which are images. Okay. So Illustrator Draw, you can create scalable vector designs. And vectors are just graphics that never pixelate. When I first learned about vectors versus bitmap, which is pixel based, it was so confusing to me. But that's all you really need to know, is that if you design something in Illustrator, you can make it as large as you want and it won't pixelate, but it doesn't look as real as Photoshop Draw or Sketch, unless you were to use brushes or edit. But Illustrator Draw is really cool for that. Create beautiful, scalable vector designs on your device. Vectors are just graphics that never pixelate. And if I go too fast through this, you can always go back and write this down. But this is just notes for you, because later on when we create projects, I will give you the option to use one of these programs to create your projects, and you get to choose. So I just want you to know what they are and what they do before. Okay. So Photoshop Express. They say this is a photo editor collage maker. What a long name. So essentially, this is similar to what we did yesterday. If you remember, I talked to you about Canva and putting all those images together in a collage. Canva's totally different program. So for Adobe Photoshop Express, you can edit. So you can add filters to your photos. You can retouch. So say you've got your friends, you took your friend's senior photos and you need to get rid of a zit. You can use this to do that. You can combine photos as well. So it's similar to Photoshop Mix, but it has a lot more like tools behind it. You can do more than Photoshop Mix. So these are the 4 that we're going to play with for now. And you get to decide which ones you want to use whenever we make a project. I will recommend some that I think would be best for projects, but say you want to make something in one and add it to another, you can totally do that. Okay. So how do we use each? What I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a day with you on each program, so that we can play with it together. You can learn how to use it, why we would use it. And then when we do a project, you can decide which app is best for the job. So like if I was making a logo, I would use Illustrator. I wouldn't use Photoshop, because Photoshop is for photos. Illustrator is for vectors and logos. So depending on the project that we're doing, you need to decide which program is best for the job. And once again, I will give recommendations, but that's what a graphic designer does. They think about, okay, what am I making? What would be the best tool for it? And then finally, you're going to design and export your work. And we'll talk a little bit about how that works too. Oops, why am I not clicking? Okay. So what we're going to be playing with today is Photoshop Mix. And so hopefully you have that downloaded onto your Chromebooks. I have a tutorial. I started making a tutorial, and I realized that there's probably someone out there who has a better tutorial than me. So we're going to watch that really quick. I think I'm going to come back to this and I'm going to explain this. Okay, so today what we're actually making is a composite, and a composite is just a finished photo that is made from cutting parts of other images and pasting into one. Think about like if you've ever cut out pieces from a magazine and pasted them onto a piece of paper, that is similar to what we're doing. Let me look at the chat really quick. open the app during Zoom, it slows way down. Yeah, okay, so good point. Don't worry about opening the app during Zoom because your Chromebooks probably can't handle opening an app and running Zoom at the same time. So that's totally fine. Okay, so I'm just gonna play this video really quick because this kind of shows what you can do, how you can make a composite, and then we'll watch the tutorial. And the volume is not on. So in that video, she is working on it. She's taking photos to make this composite. And then she works on her iPad and then she sends it to her computer because on your computer, you can do a little bit more fine touching. So when you create your composite, just be aware that doing it on a Chromebook might make it make the edges a little bit jagged when you're cutting something out. So that's why I recommend using the stylus because that helps a little bit. But that is definitely why they put that in there because they wanted to show that if you want to refine edges, you could send this to Photoshop and then do that refined work on the computer itself. But I'm not super worried about that. I just wanted to show you guys what you can do. Okay. So sorry, I'm going to stop and answer questions in the chat. Yeah, you remember using the Smart Select tool in photography last year. Yes, exactly. You are able to do that. The tutorial should show that, but when we do the Photoshop mix, it does have a Smart Select tool. It's just not as good as on the computer. That's what I don't like about it. But then again, we can't be here in person. So this is as good as it's going to get for now. So don't stress out if your edges aren't perfect. Okay, so how do we use Photoshop Mix? The first thing that you're going to need to do is think about what kind of a composite do you want to do? For her, she had an idea where she wanted to have her friend looking like she was swimming in the teacup and then have a pool ladder coming out of the teacup and then birds flying by. And that's a really cool idea. So you got to start with thinking about what you want to make. You can't just open Photoshop Mix and then expect to create stuff. You need to have photos first that you can combine together. And then let me look at the chat. Yeah, Jane, you can definitely use Illustrator and Photoshop if you want to hop onto hers. The problem is that if you run into trouble, I might have to do one-on-one, a one-on-one Zoom with you in case, but your mom could probably help you too, in case you want to send your stuff to her computer. And I can help with that too, layers and all that stuff. So the next thing is once you get your idea and your photos together, you're going to open Photoshop Mix and start importing your images for your composite. If you have images on your phone that you want to use, then I recommend emailing them to yourself or uploading them to Google Drive and then downloading them from Google Drive to your Chromebook. And that would be the best way to get the photos to your device. And if you need help with that, just let me know. But that's why I recommend downloading the Google Drive app to your phone so that you can send yourself photos to your Chromebook through Google Drive. It's like the easiest way. Because I don't think your Chromebooks have anything like AirDrop, right? I don't think so. Okay, so let's go on. So how to use Photoshop Mix. This guy talks about his dead cat at first, which was really weird, but the tutorial's good, so I apologize.
At Mickey, here today to tell you about a really cool Android app for your Chromebook. This is Adobe Photoshop Mix as experienced on my Chromebook. So let's mix two images and make a new creation. How about it? So we hit the plus, choose device to get a file already there, but you see you have other options, including accessing your Adobe Creative Cloud and your device camera. And let's use the base image that I want, which is this one of 30th Street Station from Wikipedia. I'll link it in the description. Now, I can crop, I can adjust, and the adjustment options are pretty cool. That's not what I want to show you today. I want to show you two functions. One is the looks, and two is the blend. So if I go to looks, I can apply all of these filters. And so let's say I wanted to make this rectangle of 30th Street Station with the flag projected on it really pop. Well, what if I made the background all kind of sepia toned? Well, I can do that right here. And now if you notice, everything's sepia toned, but I have a smart pen option. And so what I do is I click that. And then with my stylus, I'm going to use my stylus, I start drawing on and tapping on the image. And if you notice, as I tap, look what's happening. Parts of this image are becoming sepia toned. So it's only getting, and if you notice, by the way, right here, this is actually really well done. Sometimes it's a little tricky as far as the borders, but you can see I'm really, and this works better with just a regular old plain stylus. This is my mouse, and then this to the left is my stylus. This Chromebook does not have stylus integration, but it's just a plain old stylus from Amazon, and that works out well. I'm not going to finish the whole thing, but you see how you can make one element of an image pop using that filter and then using the smart pen. So let me tap check, and it's called Adobe Photoshop Mix. So let's blend. Let's say I want to make this look like a rainy night. Okay, so I'll add an image layer. And again, I can use my device camera or whatever I have, but let me use my save photos to my device. And I'll get this image. And again, I'll put that in the description as well. And if you notice, it's a little small. And so what I can do is, and it actually says pinch it. And so I'm going to do that now with my two fingers to expand it a little bit. And if you notice, it's looking wonky. Don't worry about that. We'll fix that. And I'll click out of it. And then I will click blend. And here, if you notice, I'm blending it to make it look like it's like a rainy window. But let's do this really like a good way. So let me do it. Let me use this filter and then use the opacity and then slide that down. And let's see if that goes. I hit check. And then I go back here. My image now has the raindrops on it like it's on a window, but it also has this, sepia tone, but then the other thing is sticking out. Really, really cool. I think the applications for this, for one, blending images, and two, making certain elements pop with that looks tool, so cool. And this all works on a Chromebook, and it would work on an iPad too, nice and easy.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it there. So the two things that I want you to play with, he played with looks, which was down there, and that's just applying a filter to your photo, and you can select out what you don't want the filter to apply to using that smart select brush. The other thing is blending. So you can layer images on top of each other, just like what he did there. And one of the, I guess, the most important tools in Photoshop is actually that blend mode, because you can blend layers into each other. And that's why people really love Photoshop, because you can do that. Um, I'll link another tutorial up here of something that I did for like so I shoot weddings and elopements, and I did a photograph of this girl. She was standing on a sandy dune on the Oregon beach, and it was like almost nighttime, and behind her it was super, super dark sky, and I overlaid a picture of stars, and I used a blend mode to get rid of all of the blue, and what left behind were the stars, and it looked really cool. It looked realistic. And so that is why I love Photoshop. And I think a lot of people use Photoshop so they can create really cool effects. But what he didn't talk about is right down here where it says cutout. You can actually use that tool to cut a piece out of a photo. And you're going to want to do that with your stylus. So say you want to cut out shoes or something like that from a photo, you can use that cutout tool and use the Smart Select brush. So Ryder, I think that you were talking about that too. That is where you're going to use it. Let me stop sharing, because I do want to show you that really quick. Smart Select Cut Out Photoshop Mix. And yeah, here's a good one. Okay, let me start this again. Oops. Okay, share screen. And I'm just gonna show this really quick so you can see it. This person is cutting out a picture of their cat.
There are more people shooting, editing, and sharing images than ever before. Photoshop Mix takes technology from Photoshop and makes it really easy to use. So whether you're just wanting to adjust a particular part of your image or do something really cool.
So what he just did there was he selected the cutout tool and uses Smart Select. And you literally just take your stylus or your finger and drag over what you want to keep, and then everything else gets deleted. So that's the power of Photoshop Mix. And of course, the edges aren't always perfect. Like right here, his edges weren't perfect, but I'm not worried about that for this assignment. I just want you to know how to use this. So I will add this tutorial in there as well for you. Let me take a look at the chat. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. I think, yep, okay. So your assignment for today, I want you to try and make a composite using your Chromebook. Stella, I know that you don't have your Chromebook, so you might have to try this on your phone, which might be a little bit tricky, but I think you can do it. So if you don't have your Chromebook, I would go and get it today or tomorrow. Make sure you get a stylus. But if you don't have it, you definitely can download this to your phone and try it there. I want you to use at least 5 different photos. Try and find photos with clean or non-busy backgrounds. And what I mean by that is, let me go to Unsplash. So for Unsplash, let's take a look at shoes. So for example, this is a great example of a clean backdrop. And the reason why I say that is because if you're wanting to cut something out of a photo and it has a busy backdrop, like there's things behind it, it will try to cut out those other things too, and it won't be a clean cut. So whenever you're searching for photos, make sure that they're on a clean backdrop, or you know, it will be easy to cut it out. Like this image, that would be pretty easy to cut out because it's definitely a different color than the background. But something like this, that would not be easy to cut out. So just make sure that you find images that are on clean backdrops. Otherwise it might not have a very clean edge. Okay, so let me go back. Use the blend tool and the cut tool. I just want you to play with those. And you can use photos you find online as well. That's totally fine. But when you go to export this, that is the thing that I actually wanted to make a tutorial on my Chromebook to show you. But when you export it, it will ask you if you want to export it to your device, and you're definitely going to say yes. Let me pull it up and I'll go through it with you. Open. I wish I could turn my screen on my Chromebook towards you guys so you could see it, but yeah, that's probably not gonna work. Oh man, my Chromebook is so loud, so slow. Wow, I can't even open it. Hopefully you guys don't have that problem. It's probably because I have 8 billion other things open. So when you go to export it, there's a little icon at the top that looks a little bit like a V, and that's usually the share icon. And you're gonna wanna save it to your camera roll or save it to your device. And from there, you can attach it to the assignment. So does that make sense? Hopefully you guys won't have any issues with that. Yeah, Madden, you can definitely rewatch the video and look at the PowerPoint too. That will help you so you know what we're doing. Yes, you would just download the app, Photoshop Mix, and then Taya, how you get a stylus is you go to school and you go to the library and they will check you out one. Yep, Photoshop Mix. So what we're making is a composite, and that is where you combine photos into one, kind of like a scrapbook. Go ahead and watch the videos that I have on our presentation for today. Can we just use Illustrator and Photoshop, or do we have to get the others too? Definitely for this, get Photoshop Mix. And do I have any recommendations for a stylus that you could buy? I don't actually, because this is it's the first year that I've used a stylus. But the guy on that tutorial said that he recommends any stylus because Chromebooks are not very, like high tech. So I think any stylus would be fine. So I can make something or someone with the images. Yep, absolutely. Have fun with this, you guys. Like that's definitely something that I recommend is go online and Google composites and look for some inspiration. And then once you have an idea, go and find photos online to cut together so you can make your composite. That's definitely what I would recommend. But I do want you to have fun with this and make something really funky or unique. And that would be the goal, right? Like the point of this is to have fun and make something unique. And then Taya, you can come in to get your stylus anytime from 8 to 3 every day to the library. And if you want today to just use your finger, you could totally do that too. But the stylus is way more fine and detailed. So yeah, any other questions? Okay, those were really great questions. Before we get done, I'll answer that in just one sec, Anna. Don't forget to turn in your warm-up because that counts for your attendance today. And then when is it due, Anna? It is due, I believe I have it due on the calendar on Friday. Yeah. Good question. And you can always look at the assignments and they will show you when it's due. So is this what we will be doing today? On Thursday, I will, because Wednesday, Yes. So this is what you'll be working on tomorrow. And then the app that you should use is the Photoshop Mix, Sebastian. Yeah. So what we're going to do on Thursday is we're going to learn about Photoshop Sketch. So if you just want to take a look at that and see how it works, it is so fun, you guys. I love using it. I actually have it on my iPad and it looks super similar to drawing on paper with pencil or with watercolor or like paint. So if you're into like that kind of art, you will really love Photoshop Sketch. And that's why I think everyone should get a stylus and a Chromebook if they don't have it. Because if you don't have an iPad at home, the Chromebook is actually really good. Surprisingly, I know that I diss on the Chromebooks a lot, but I was pleasantly surprised at how well it worked. So yeah. So for now, you're just creating your composite out of Photoshop Mix. And then don't forget to turn in your warm up today in the discussion thread. And I also have that linked in our calendar. Okay. Any other questions? All of the stuff I went over today is in our calendar. So if you want to go back to that, you can. But other than that, that's all I've got. You guys can hop off if you like and stay on if you have questions. Thank you. Bye.
Wait, why did you say to try to find pictures with nothing in the background?
Yeah, you can go to Unsplash.
All right.
Yeah, or Pexels, Pexels. But Unsplash is really good.
All right. Thanks.
Yep, thank you. Anyone else have any questions? All right, I'm going to go ahead and end